And then obviously mental, like I mean, people kind of simplify it in a way, it's more mental than physical. What does that actually mean? Is that like, so you're talking about it now, like that's kind of working out efficiencies, but there's comes a point. Well, I've done a lot of these ultra runs, and you comes a point where you just want to give up. And in your case, probably not want to give up, but just can I keep pushing? Maybe I need to slow down. And there must be something in you that kind of wants to keep driving. Is that the desire to win, or where does that come from, or does it vary depending on the day?
I'm not really sure. I definitely have wanted to give up, but I think there's
Mm.
something in me that won't let myself. So I can remember, I think it was in the first Trail World Championships I ran for GB, and I was actually looking for snakes actively on the ground. So I thought if I get bit by a snake, I have to stop. So
Yeah.
I need a legitimate excuse as to why I should stop, just because being tired or just there aren't that many excuses as to why I should be able to stop. And I think when I got into running, I did start reading quite a few of these survival type story books. The rugby
Yeah.
team crashing in the mountains,
Yeah.
and like people cutting off their arm to get out of a gorge and stuff.
Yeah.
Like the human body is incredible, and I'm just tapping into a very small amount of it. So there needs to be a very big reason in this race, and I put myself in this position.
Yeah.
Personally, I've chosen to do this race, so I need a very big reason as to why I'm going to stop pushing. And then usually you do find another gear, or just sort of like you just continue going. It's actually the first half of the race that I usually struggle the most, because I'm too fresh and I'm waiting to be tired.
Right.
Everyone's racing, everyone's focused, and there's so much going on. You're thinking, am I tired yet? Am I not tired? Are my legs feeling okay? And then by the time you get past halfway, you're destroyed and you just keep going. And time takes on like a different speed, and you're pushing everything you can, and that's all you can do. Whereas at the start, you can speed up, you can
Yeah.
slow down. It's just
Yeah.
far too much. Um, yeah, going on. So I normally prefer getting into the second half, just descend into that dark place and then just keep grinding away.
Yeah. The pain cave, as the Americans call it. Dig away at it. And and presumably, if you're winning these races, and this is experience I've had, obviously much on a much smaller scale, but you can kind of come out the other side into this state of flow and ease, and where you kind of everything. So it's almost like that pain has left. You must have had that, and can you describe what that feels like? Presumably, you've felt great in races near the end, and
I think that state of flow is something that I've actually been able to find relatively easily with running.
right,
Some
right,
people really can't do it with running. They can do it with cycling, or they can do it
yeah,
with swimming. Whereas I put on a pair of shoes, I head out, and I can sort of descend into that, just being in the moment,
right,
moving along, feeling slightly like more powerful than, yeah, you just feel like you're moving well. And I've been able to do that in all different types of running. And actually, the more you train, the more you can lose that, because you're concentrating on your heart rate or your
yeah,
pace, on this, on that, on a lot of these external things. But to always try and get back to that flow feeling is always going to give you the best performance.
yeah,
So, like with intervals, instead of trying to hit a certain heart rate or trying to go hard, I'm trying to run well and get into that flow
yeah,
kind of state instead. It's so difficult to do in races, because there's so many things you're questioning, like who's that
yeah,
person up ahead, where are you in the race, there's so much
yeah.
going on. But to try and just be in the movement, in the moment, move well, that's normally where you're going to get the best result.
Yeah, that's an interesting one to yeah, because particularly when you try and run fast, often that's when you start. Well, for me, it's often when I start looking at the watch. Like if I'm doing an easy
Yeah,
run, I don't really care about the speed, but it's interesting to just go with the feeling of it. That's
I
a really
think
good tip.
feeling is really powerful, and it's something that a lot of people have maybe pushed back behind measuring lactic acid or
Yeah,
measuring heart rate and whatnot. But it's surprising with professionals how much does actually go off feeling, and
yeah,
how much, yeah, they have a training plan, but how much they adapt it and change it depending on how they are doing. So I think yeah, there's a lot of data out there, but it does come back down to instincts, and how you feel is really very powerful. And I certainly try and
yeah,
use that a lot within my own training. If I'm just going to go off heart rate, I can run really inefficiently. Actually, I can get my heart rate up just jumping around and move my arms. And that
right,
doesn't mean I'm running any faster. It doesn't mean I'm running any better. It
yeah,
just means I've got the right heart rate to what I should do for the training through other means. So really to be able to run well and powerfully and sort of like envisage how you want to be running, it should always come first. And then the actual heart rate is something that comes afterwards because of trying to move
Yeah.
well. I think that comes even more in trail running and in the mountains, because then the types of trails you're on, they slow you down and you can move really inefficiently through that and yet still have the same heart rate. But ultimately the whole goal is to move well and to get to the finish line first. So that should be the first thing you try and do in your intervals or when you're trying to push it a bit more in training.